The council chamber stretched wide like an empty sky, filled with representatives from 200 different worlds. Some had scales, some had fur, and some were just clouds of gas floating in containment suits. They all talked at once, arguing about trade routes and mining rights like they did every single day. Ambassador Day 1 stood at the human platform, a small raised circle near the back of the room. Humans always got the back platforms, the ones with poor lighting and bad sound systems. He waited for his turn to speak, just like he had waited 1,000 times before. When the chairman finally called on him, Day 1 kept his voice calm and steady. The United Planets of Humanity formally withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. We thank the Council for 3 centuries of cooperation. The room went quiet for exactly 5 seconds. Then Chairman Vex's thrower laughed. His species had 3 mouths, and all of them made the same clicking sound when he found something funny. Very dramatic, Ambassador. What is it this time? More complaints about voting rights? More whining about respect? Dewan did not smile. He did not frown either. No complaints, Chairman. Just our formal withdrawal. The paperwork has been filed according to Section 47 of the Council Charter. All human personnel will evacuate Council facilities within 72 hours. He turned and walked out. Behind him, the Council chamber erupted in noise again, but not the worried kind, the amused kind. The kind that said they thought humans were being childish. On Station Kepler 9, Engineer Ji Woo received the evacuation order on her datapad. She stood in the fusion core control room, surrounded by machines she had maintained for 20 years. The walls hummed with power that she had kept stable through 3 system upgrades and countless emergencies. Her supervisor, a Velian with purple skin and too many arms, walked past her station. "You are leaving?" he asked, not looking up from his own pad. "Yes," Juo said. "Everyone is. Who will maintain the cores?" "You will figure it out," she said. She started the shutdown sequence, her fingers dancing across controls she could operate in her sleep. The manuals are in the database. Everything is labeled. The Velian made a noise that might have been concern, but he still did not look at her. The manuals are written in human technical language, very simple language. They take a center. Very simple language. Ju almost laughed. Simple. These cores regulated power for 15,000 people across 12 different species. The mathematics alone required understanding quantum fluctuations at scales most species could not even measure. But sure, simple. She finished the shutdown, leaving only basic life support running. 20 years of her life, and her supervisor did not even say goodbye. Across the galaxy, the same scene repeated thousands of times. Humans powered down stations, logged out of systems, and packed their few belongings. Most had been working in positions that other species considered beneath them. Maintenance work, repair jobs, infrastructure management, the unglamorous tasks that kept civilization running. Tahun had been the chief logistics coordinator for the entire Orion sector. His job was making sure food, medicine, and supplies reached 73 different colonies on time. He worked with 15 different species, each with different needs, different biology, and different attitudes. On his last day, he exported his data and shut down his workstation. His assistant, a young Kryn with bright green eyes, watched nervously. "The supply routes," the Kryn said. "The schedules, the all in the system," Tahun said. "You have access to everything, but the system does not explain your decisions. Why this route and not that one? Why this supplier? I do." Tahun looked at the Kryn for a long moment. He had trained 3 assistants over the years. None of them had lasted more than a month. They all thought logistics was just data entry and simple math. They never understood the complexity, the constant problem-solving, the way you had to think 5 steps ahead. "You will learn," he said finally, "or you will not. Good luck." The Kryn's skin turned a worried shade of yellow, but Tahun was already walking away. Small problems started immediately. A water recycler on a Kryn colony ship stopped working properly. The automated repair request went unanswered, because the human technician who usually handled it was gone. The Kryn engineers looked at the machine, then at the manual, then at each other. "It says to adjust the phase variance modulator." One of them said, "What is a phase variance modulator?" Navigation algorithms on Threxian military vessels started showing small errors. Nothing dangerous yet, just slight course corrections that seemed off. The Threxian navigators assumed it was a software glitch and ignored it. Power distribution on Council Station Prime flickered twice in 1 week. Unusual, but not alarming. The station chief sent a message to the maintenance department asking them to check it. The maintenance department had been 90% human. Now it was empty. Back on Earth, Ju sat in her apartment in Seoul and stared at the ocean. She had not seen natural water in 20 years. Station Kepler 9 had water, but it was recycled, processed, and piped. This was different. This moved on its own. Her communicator buzzed with messages from former colleagues, other humans, all asking the same questions. Did we do the right thing? Should we have stayed? What happens now? Ju did not answer them. She knew what happened now. The galaxy would continue. Systems would fail slowly. Then quickly, the other species would scramble to fix things. Some problems they would solve, others they would not. And eventually, maybe they would understand what they had lost. Or maybe they would not. Maybe they would find other solutions, other workers, other species to take humanity's place. That would be fine too. Humans were tired of being invisible, tired of being essential, but never valued. Day 1 gave one final interview before closing Earth's communications with the galaxy. A Threxian journalist asked him why humanity was really leaving. "We are not angry," Day 1 said carefully. "We are just done. For 300 years, we fixed your machines, managed your logistics, mediated your conflicts, and maintained your infrastructure. We did good work, important work, and you called it simple. You put us in the back of the room and gave us no voice in decisions. So we are leaving, that is all. But surely humanity needs the council," the journalist said. "The protection, the trade, we do not need anything from you." Day 1 said we never did. You needed us. You just never noticed. He ended the transmission. Earth's borders closed, the defense systems activated, and humanity for the first time in 3 centuries went quiet. 6 months passed like water through a broken dam. Slow at first, then faster, then overwhelming. Counselor Lynn Sarah of the Aquar Federation noticed the problems before most others. Her species lived in water and thought in currents and flows. They saw patterns, and the pattern she saw was collapse. It started with small things. A food shipment arrived 3 weeks late at one of her colony worlds. The shipment after that never arrived at all. When she investigated, she found that the entire Orion sector logistics network had stopped functioning properly. The system was still running. Data still moved through it, but nothing made sense anymore. Ships went to the wrong places. Supplies piled up at some stations and ran out at others. The automated processes that used to work perfectly now created chaos. She pulled up the system records and found Tahun's name everywhere. He had been the coordinator. He had made 10,000 small decisions every day, adjustments that kept everything flowing smoothly. The system had not replaced him. It had just kept running his last set of instructions over and over. Even when circumstances changed, Lynn Sarah tried to fix it herself. She spent 2 weeks studying the logistics software trying to understand how it worked. The interface was simple enough. Input destination, input cargo, calculate route. Easy. But when she ran her calculations, ships started colliding with each other at waypoint stations. She had not accounted for traffic patterns or fuel stops, or the fact that some species could not share cargo holds because their atmospheric needs were different, or 100 other variables that Tahan had juggled without anyone noticing. She gave up and hired a Kryn logistics expert, one of the best in the galaxy. He lasted 4 days before admitting he could not do it either. On Council Station Prime, the power flickered again. Then, it went out completely for 6 hours. Emergency life support kept everyone alive, but the station went dark and cold. When power came back, 3 major data cores had been corrupted. The station chief assembled a team of engineers from 5 different species. All of them were highly trained, highly intelligent, and highly confident. They gathered in the fusion core control room and stared at the machinery. "The human left manuals," one of them said, pulling up files on a data screen. "See, everything is documented." They read the manuals. The language was simple, almost insultingly so. Step 1. Check power flow. Step 2. Adjust containment field. Step 3. Monitor quantum stability. "This is basic," the Threxian engineer said. "Humans always overcomplicated their importance. This is simple maintenance work. They followed the steps exactly. The fusion core shut down completely. Panic spread through the team as they realized the backup systems were not engaging. The station began losing atmosphere. Alarms screamed through every corridor. The engineers frantically tried to reverse what they had done, but nothing worked. A young villain technician barely out of training finally got the core restarted by ignoring the manual and just guessing. It took 14 hours. 53 people died from environmental failure in the outer rings. The station chief sent an urgent message to Earth. It bounced back undelivered. The automated response was the same as always. Humanity thanks the Galactic Council for 3 centuries of cooperation. No further communication is desired. Access Center. Enter Welby Counselor Lynch. Sarah requested an emergency session of the full council. Chairman Vexler tried to dismiss her concerns. We are experiencing technical difficulties, he said. Every civilization experiences these. We will adapt. We are not adapting, Linsara said. Her voice carried through the chamber like cold water. We are failing. Food distribution has collapsed in 3 sectors. Power systems are unstable on 47 major stations. Our FTL communication network has had 2 complete blackouts. And our best engineers cannot fix these problems. Then we need better engineers. Vextaler said we had better engineers, Liner said quietly. We called them maintenance workers and paid them almost nothing. The chamber went silent. A Threxian military commander stood up. Surely the humans were not the only species capable of these tasks. We have managed infrastructure for thousands of years. Have you? Linsara pulled up a data file and projected it across the chamber. This is a list of critical positions across council space. I have marked the ones that were filled by humans 6 months ago. The list covered the entire projection. Thousands of positions, tens of thousands, all marked in red. Power management, waste processing, atmospheric regulation, medical equipment maintenance, agricultural systems, FTL drive calibration, AI safety monitoring, diplomatic mediation, emergency response coordination. Linsara kept reading. The list goes on for 300 pages. These were not simple jobs, they were essential jobs, and humans did all of them, while we focused on what we considered important work. This is exaggerated, Vextaler said, but his voice had lost its certainty. Is it? Linsara switched the projection. Here is our economic output over the last 6 months. Down 38%. Here are our trade routes. 40% are non-functional. Here are reports of civil unrest. Up 200%. Because supplies are not reaching people, she turned to face the chairman directly. We are 6 months into this crisis. It will get worse. A Kreller spoke up. We should negotiate with Earth. Apologize. Offer them better terms. They will not respond to our communications, someone else said. Then we go there. The Kryn counselor said in person they closed their borders. Vextaler said their defense systems are active. Any ship that approaches Sol's system will be destroyed. Linser had been researching this. She pulled up another file. Not any ship. The automated defense grid has protocols. Small vessels unarmed on diplomatic transponders. These might be allowed to approach. Might be. We will not know until we try. The council argued for another hour, but the conclusion was inevitable. They needed humanity back, or at least they needed to try. Before the council adjourned, Linsara did something she had never done before. She went to the archives and requested access to human personnel files. Not the official records, but the personal logs that employees were allowed to keep. She found an entry from a human named Umji, who had worked in waste management on a Velian colony world. The entry was dated 2 years before humanity's departure. Another day, another crisis solved, Misha had written. The main recycling processor failed again. The Velians said it was a simple fix. Just replace the catalyst chamber. But the catalyst chamber was not the problem. The problem was a cascade failure in the molecular separator that nobody else could even detect. Took me 6 weeks to solve. 6 weeks of working 18-hour days, while everyone asked why such a simple job was taking so long. Today, the Verlian administrator gave a speech about maintaining our equipment. He did not mention me once. He did not mention any of the human staff, but that is fine. Someone has to keep the lights on. Linsara read through more entries. Dozens of them. Hundreds. The same story repeated over and over. Humans solving complex problems that everyone else thought were simple. Humans working impossible hours to keep civilization running. Humans being ignored, dismissed, and undervalued. She felt something she had not felt in a long time. Shame. The galaxy had taken humanity for granted, and now the galaxy was paying the price. 2 years after humanity left, the Galactic Council was no longer just struggling, it was dying. The food crisis hit hardest. Borum had managed agricultural distribution for 17 different species across 42 colony worlds. Her systems tracked growing seasons, harvest times, processing schedules, and shipping routes. She had understood which crops grew well in which environments, which species needed which nutrients, and how to balance supply across the entire network. When she left, the automated systems tried to continue her work. They failed within 3 months. Then a shipment of Reliant grain went to a Kryn colony world. Kryn could not digest it. The grain rotted in storage while the Kryn went hungry. Meanwhile, Verlian colonies ran out of their own food because the grain they needed went elsewhere. A Threxian colony planted crops in soil that was completely wrong for their biology. The entire harvest died. 50,000 Threxians faced starvation. Emergency food had to be shipped from the homeworld, straining resources everywhere. The council tried to fix it. They hired consultants. They formed committees. They studied Borum's old records and tried to recreate her decision-making process. But Borum had not just followed processes. She had understood. She had known that Villian grain needed low moisture storage, or it would develop toxins. She had known that Kryn colonies in the Outer Rim had longer growing seasons because of their planet's rotation. She had known 1,000 details that were never written down because everyone assumed they were obvious. They were not obvious. They were expertise. Famines began, not everywhere, but enough places to matter. Worlds that had never worried about food suddenly faced shortages. The council diverted resources to emergency relief, which caused shortages elsewhere. The whole system started to crack. Chairman Vexthaler announced that the Threxian military would take over infrastructure management. The Threxians were known for their engineering skills. Surely they could handle what humans had done. They could not. The first disaster was a terraforming world called Kepler-7. Humans had been managing the atmospheric processors there for 90 years. The process was delicate. Too much oxygen and the plant life would burn out. Too little, and it would not grow. The balance had to be perfect. The Threxian engineers studied the systems for 2 months before making changes. They were confident. They had degrees from the best universities. They had centuries of engineering experience. They increased the oxygen output by 12% to speed up the terraforming process. Within 6 weeks, the entire ecosystem collapsed. Wildfires swept across 3 continents. The atmosphere became toxic. 200,000 colonists had to be evacuated. The world was now useless for at least a century. 2 more terraforming worlds failed in similar ways. The Thraxians stopped volunteering to help. The Kryn tried next. They were a meticulous species known for attention to detail. The Council asked them to manage the FTL communication network that connected all of Council space. The network was incredibly complex. It used relay stations scattered across hundreds of light-years, all synchronized to within microseconds. Humans had maintained it for centuries, keeping the timing perfect despite the constant drift caused by stellar motion and gravitational fluctuations. The Krenans studied it carefully. They made small adjustments trying to optimize the signal strength. The adjustments seemed minor, barely noticeable. The network went down completely. Every relay station lost synchronization at once. Communication across Council space went dark. It took 5 weeks to restore even basic functionality. During that time, 3 border skirmishes escalated into small wars because nobody could communicate with anyone else. The wars revealed another problem. Without humans, there were no mediators. Haiyan Wu had been a diplomatic mediator for 40 years. He was not important enough to attend council sessions or negotiate major treaties. He handled smaller disputes, trade disagreements, border conflicts, cultural misunderstandings between species. He had prevented 14 wars. Nobody knew this because the wars never happened. He solved problems before they became violent. He found compromises that made everyone feel heard. He was patient and creative, and good at his job. Without him, and hundreds of humans like him, small problems became big problems. Big problems became conflicts. Conflicts became wars. The Verlian Empire and the Threxian Dominion had hated each other for centuries. Only careful diplomacy kept them from open warfare. Human mediators had been managing their disputes for generations, handling everything from trade violations to border incidents. Without mediators, a minor territorial dispute exploded into a military confrontation. 12 ships destroyed, 3,000 dead. Both sides demanded the Council take action. The Council could not. They were too busy trying to keep their own systems running. More species began withdrawing from the Council entirely. If the Council could not provide basic services, what was the point of membership? 4 species left in the second year. 3 more threatened to leave. Counselor Lynn Sarah spent months investigating the extent of the crisis. The more she looked, the worse it got. Humans had not just maintained infrastructure, they had been the invisible foundation of the entire civilization. She found records of a human named Ji Wu working on Station Kepler 9. The station's fusion cores had been considered simple maintenance by the Verlian administration. But Linsera found Ji Wu's actual work logs. The cores required constant micro-adjustments to prevent quantum instability. The mathematics involved were beyond most species' understanding. Sihir had been making thousands of tiny corrections every week, preventing disasters that nobody else even knew were possible. The current Velian engineers could not do it. Station Kepler 9 now operated at 23% capacity. Everyone lived in 3 sectors because the other 12 were too dangerous to inhabit. Similar stories everywhere. A human waste management engineer who had developed a bacterial treatment that prevented disease outbreaks. A human AI safety monitor who had stopped 6 different synthetic intelligence systems from becoming dangerous. A human structural engineer who had been quietly reinforcing aging space stations before they collapsed. All gone, all doing critical work that everyone had called simple. Liner presented her findings to Chairman Vex's Tholar in a private meeting. She brought data, evidence, and projections. If things continued like this, the Council would collapse completely within 5 years. Vex's Thaler looked at the data for a long time. Finally, he spoke. "We were fools," he said quietly. "We had the greatest workforce in the galaxy, and we treated them like servants. We need to apologize," Liner said. "We need to ask them to come back. They will refuse, perhaps, but we have to try." Vex Thaler was quiet again. His pride was a physical thing in the room, heavy and wounded. His species had ruled a vast empire for millennia. They did not apologize. They did not beg. But his empire was crumbling. "Very well," he said. "Prepare a delegation. You will lead it. Me? You are the only one who truly understands what we lost." BX Thaler said, "You are the only one who might convince them we have changed." Lynn Sarah knew this was dangerous. Earth's defense systems were active. They might destroy any ship that approached, diplomatic mission or not. But what choice did they have? The galaxy was falling apart, and humanity was their only hope of putting it back together. Counselor Lynn Sarah stood in the shuttle bay and stared at the small vessel that would carry her to Earth. It looked fragile. No weapons, no shields, barely enough room for 5 passengers. Just a diplomatic transponder and a hope that humanity would not destroy them on sight. Chairman Vexthaler came to see her off. He looked older now, worn down by 2 years of crisis. His 3 mouths were all closed, a sign of stress in his species. "If they refuse to see you," he said, "do not push. Return safely. And if they see me, but reject our offer." Vex's Thera boarded the ship with 4 others. A Kryn diplomat, a villain scientist, a Threxian military observer, and a human. Yes, a human. One of the few who had chosen to stay in council space despite the withdrawal. Her name was Hana. She was old now, her hair gray and her hands shaking slightly with age. She had been a teacher, not an engineer or a mediator. She had stayed because her students needed her. "Why did you agree to come?" Linsera asked her as the ship prepared for departure. Hana looked out the viewport at the stars. "Because I still believe in bridges. Even burned ones can be rebuilt." Quote, "The journey to Sol System took 3 weeks. They traveled slowly, broadcasting their diplomatic status constantly. No weapons charged, no aggressive maneuvers, just a small ship asking for permission to approach. Earth's defense grid tracked them from the moment they entered human space. Liner could see it on the sensors. Hundreds of satellites, dozens of automated defense stations, all locked onto their vessel. Any one of them could destroy the ship in an instant. They received no communication, just silence, and the constant presence of those targeting systems. When they reached the orbit of Mars, a message finally came through. A human voice, young and professional, unidentified vessel. You are in restricted space. State your purpose. Lincera activated the communication system herself. This is Counselor Lincera of the Aquari Federation. I am leading a diplomatic delegation from the Galactic Council. We request permission to speak with Earth's government. Silence, then stand by. They waited for 6 hours. The targeting systems never unlocked from their ship. Lincer tried not to think about how easily they could die here. Finally, the response came. You are permitted to land at Research Station Antarctica 7. You will be met by a representative. Do not deviate from the provided flight path. Do not activate any systems we have not approved. Any deviation will result in immediate destruction. Understood. Lincera said the flight path appeared on their navigation system. It took them around Earth's moon, giving them a view of the planet below. Lincera stared at it. She had seen images of Earth before, but never like this, never real. It was beautiful. Blue oceans, white clouds, green and brown continents, a living world, vibrant and healthy, so different from the sterile space stations she was used to. They have grown, Hana said quietly beside her. When I left Earth 40 years ago, the orbital traffic was heavy. Now I see almost nothing. They have pulled inward. Is that good or bad? The Kryn diplomat asked. I do not know, Hana said. They landed in Antarctica as instructed. The facility was small, just a cluster of buildings on a frozen plain. Wind howled across the ice. The temperature outside was deadly to most species aboard the ship. A human waited for them in a heated reception building. His name was Saneng Hune, and he was an administrator of some kind. He wore simple clothes and showed no particular emotion when greeting them. Welcome to Earth, he said in perfect galactic common. Your quarters have been prepared. Food and atmosphere have been adjusted for your species' needs. You will stay here while your request for an audience is considered. How long will that take? The Threxian observer asked. As long as it takes, Santang Hun said. Earth's High Council meets when they choose to meet, not before. They were shown to a set of rooms that were adequate but not comfortable. The furniture was functional. The food was bland. The temperature was slightly too cold for everyone except Lincera, whose species preferred cooler environments. It felt deliberate. They were being shown exactly what adequate meant, when nobody cared about making you comfortable. 3 days passed, then 4, then 5. Lincera tried to contact Sun Hun multiple times. He responded politely, but gave them no information. Yes, their request was being considered. No, he did not know when they would receive an answer. Yes, they could wait or leave. Those were their options. The Threxian observer grew angry. This is insulting. We are representatives of the Galactic Council. We were representatives of the Galactic Council, Hana said quietly. And we treated them worse than this for 300 years. On the 6th day, Liner was given permission to leave the facility for a supervised walk. San Hun accompanied her, both of them in thermal suits against the cold. They walked across the ice in silence for a while. The wind cut through everything. The landscape was empty and harsh, and somehow beautiful. Why did you really come here? Saneng Hun asked finally. The council is collapsing, Liner said. There was no point in lying. We need help. You need workers, Sang Hun corrected. People to fix your machines and manage your systems, and keep your civilization running, while you focus on more important things. No, Liner said. I need to admit that we were wrong, that we took advantage of your people, that we dismissed expertise as simple labor, that we failed to see the value of what you did until it was too late. Sang Hun stopped walking. He turned to look at her, his face unreadable behind the thermal mask. Pretty words, he said. Do you believe them? Yes, Lincera said. I have spent 2 years watching civilization fall apart. I have read your people's personal logs. I have seen the complexity of work. We called simple. I understand now. We were fools. And the others, the chairman, the council members who laughed when Ambassador Dewan announced our withdrawal. Lincera did not answer immediately. She could lie. She could say everyone understood now. But Hana's words echoed in her mind. Even burned bridges could be rebuilt, but not with lies. Some understand, she said. Others are learning, and some will never admit they were wrong. But they know we are dying without you. Pride can only sustain you for so long before reality forces change. Sang Hun was quiet for a long moment. Come, he said finally. The High Council has agreed to see you. Tomorrow morning. That night, Lincera could not sleep. She reviewed everything she wanted to say, every argument she had prepared, but she knew that words alone would not be enough. The galaxy had to prove it had changed, and she was not sure they could. The meeting room was plain, white walls, simple furniture, no decorations. 5 humans sat on one side of a long table. 5 aliens sat on the other. Between them was 300 years of history and 2 years of silence. One Shik led the human delegation. He was in his 60s with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been a fusion core engineer before becoming a council member. He knew exactly what his people had done for the galaxy, and he knew exactly how they had been treated for it. "Thank you for seeing us," Liner began. She had practiced this speech for days. "The Galactic Council recognizes that we made grave errors in our treatment of humanity. We took your expertise for granted. We undervalued your contributions. We failed to give you the respect and representation you deserved. We are here to apologize and to ask for your help." One Sheik listened without expression. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Counselor Lynn Sarah," he said finally, "I appreciate your honesty, but I need you to understand something. We did not leave because we wanted an apology. We left because we were exhausted." He stood and walked to the window. Outside, ice and wind stretched to the horizon. "Do you know what it is like?" One chick continued. "To solve complex problems every single day and have everyone call your work simple. To prevent disasters that nobody else could even detect and have nobody notice. To be essential but invisible." "I am beginning to understand," Lynn Sarah said quietly. "Are you?" One Shik turned to face her. "Let me tell you about my daughter." Her name was Ji Wu. She maintained the fusion cores on station Kepler 9 for 20 years. "Do you know what fusion core maintenance involves?" The villain scientist started to answer, but One Shik held up a hand. "It involves calculating quantum fluctuations at scales smaller than most sensors can measure. It involves predicting cascade failures before they happen. It involves understanding physics so complex that most species have not even theorized it yet. My daughter did this work every single day, and her supervisor never learned her name." The room was silent. "That is why we left." One Shik said, "Not because of one insult or one policy. Because of 300 years of being treated like we did not matter." The Threxian observer spoke up. "But surely you must see that the council is suffering. Millions of people are struggling because of your absence." "Yes." One Shik said, "I do see that. And do you know what I feel? Not satisfaction, not pride, just more exhaustion. Because even now you are telling us that our value comes from what we can do for you." Anna, the old teacher who had come with the delegation, spoke up. "One Sheik, I know you are angry. I am angry too, but there are people dying. Not council members, not politicians, regular people who just want food and safety and a working power grid. They did not make these decisions. They do not deserve to suffer." One Shik looked at her for a long moment. "You are right, Teacher Hana. They do not deserve it. Neither did we. So what do we do?" Hana asked. "Let everything collapse out of spite." "No," One-Ache said. He returned to his seat. "We do not do things out of spite. That is not who we are. But we also do not go back to how things were." He pulled up a document on the table's display screen. "These are Earth's terms." Lincer read through them. They were not what she expected. Humanity would return to help stabilize critical systems, but not as council members, as independent contractors. They would be paid fairly. They would work on their own terms. They would refuse any job they chose to refuse. More importantly, humanity would not simply fix the problems and leave. Every species would be required to send engineers, technicians, and workers to train under human mentors. Real training, not observation. Hands-on work until they truly understood. "You want to teach us," Liner said. "We want you to stop needing us," One Chick corrected. "We are not your solution. We are a bridge to you finding your own solutions," the Threxian observer objected. "This is unreasonable. We have our own training programs, our own expertise. Your training programs taught you that fusion core maintenance was simple work." One Chick said, "Your expertise killed 53 people on Council Station Prime. When you tried to restart the cores, the Threxian went silent. Our terms are not negotiable," One Chick said. "Accept them or do not. Either way, humanity is not returning to the old arrangement." Lynn Sarah thought about this. She thought about Chairman Vexthaler and his pride. She thought about the council members who still believed humanity had been expendable. She thought about how hard this would be to sell. Then she thought about the famines, the wars, the collapsing infrastructure, the millions of regular people suffering through no fault of their own. I accept your terms, she said. I cannot guarantee the full council will agree, but I will fight for this. Then we will begin with you, one Shik said. He gestured to one of the other humans at the table. This is Tahun. He managed logistics for the Orion sector. He will work with you to stabilize your food distribution network. But you will work with him, not for him. You will learn how the systems actually function. Linsera nodded. I understand. Do you? Tahun asked. He was younger than one Shik with sharp eyes. Because learning means admitting. You do not know. It means being wrong. It means doing work that you think is beneath you. Are you prepared for that? Liner thought about her species' pride, about her own assumptions about 300 years of getting it wrong. Yes, she said. Over the next 5 years, the galaxy slowly rebuilt. Human workers returned, but everything was different now. They had clear contracts, fair pay, respect. Ju returned to Station Kepler 9 with 3 Valion apprentices. She taught them everything, patiently explaining the complexity they had never seen before. One of them quit after a month, unable to handle how much there was to learn. The other 2 stayed, and eventually became competent engineers themselves. Tahan worked with Linsera and a team of council logistics coordinators. It took them 8 months to stabilize the food network. It took another year before they could manage it without constant human supervision. Linsera learned more in those 2 years than she had in the previous century. Hunwoo came back to mediation work, but with official status now. His title was Senior Diplomatic Mediator. He trained others in his methods, teaching them patience and creativity, and the art of listening. The council changed too, slowly, painfully, but it changed. New regulations required fair compensation for all workers. New policies gave voice to species that had been ignored. New training programs taught the real complexity of infrastructure work. Some species adapted quickly, others resisted. A few left the council entirely, unable to accept the new order, but the galaxy survived. And it learned 5 years after humanity's return, Ambassador Dewan sat in the council chamber again, but not in the back, not in the poorly lit platform with bad speakers. He sat at the main table, equal to any other member. Chairman Vextaler was still chairman, though he was humbler now. When Dayon presented the quarterly infrastructure report, Vextaler actually listened. He took notes. He asked intelligent questions. After the session, Councillor Linser approached Day One in the corridor. Was it worth it? She asked. Letting us fall so far? Day One considered this carefully. We did not want you to fall. We just wanted to stop holding you up while you ignored us. But people died. Yes, Dewan said. And people died before too, when we worked ourselves to exhaustion trying to maintain impossible systems with no support. The difference is that nobody noticed those deaths because they happened slowly. Linser absorbed this. You are right. I am sorry. I know you are. Day One said. You proved it by actually learning, by doing the work, by changing. They walked together through the station corridors. The lights were steady now, the air clean, the systems humming properly. Human engineers had stabilized everything, and now other species were learning to maintain it. What happens when you leave again? Linsera asked. When your contracts end? That depends, Dewan said. Can the galaxy function without us? Not yet, but we are learning. Then we stay until you can. Not because we are servants. Not because we are saviors, because we are partners. Liner stopped walking. She looked at him with her large liquid eyes. I have learned something these past years, something I wish I had understood centuries ago. What is that? The quiet competence that keeps civilization running is never simple, and it should never be taken for granted. Every person who maintains the systems we rely on deserves recognition, deserves respect, deserves to be seen. Day One smiled. It was the first time Linsera had seen him smile. Now you understand, he said. Somewhere on Earth, Wan Shik sat with his daughter Ji Woo on a beach. They watched the ocean together, the natural water that moved on its own, unpredictable and free. Did we do the right thing? Ju asked, leaving them to struggle. One chick was quiet for a long time. I do not know if there was a right thing. We did what we needed to do. We taught them what we could not teach them any other way. And now we rebuild together as equals. The waves rolled in, steady and eternal, and above them, scattered across the stars, the galaxy slowly learned to appreciate the invisible hands that kept the lights on, the hands that had always been there, the hands that finally at last were seen.